Morning. Oh, sorry. Okay, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? There we go. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our charter authorizing session today. We'll be spending today and tomorrow hearing applications for open enrollment charters. I want to welcome everyone to the newly renovated ADE auditorium. I believe we've had one previous meeting in this space, but we are definitely proud of it and appreciate all of you being here this morning. So at this time, I would like to call this panel, this meeting to order, and ask you to please silence your electronic devices. I'm going to introduce our panel. This panel oversees the authorization, renewal, revision, and revocation of charters. Commissioner Key has named 7 members to the charter authorizing panel. I'm Ivy Pfeffer, the ADE Assistant Commissioner and Chair of the panel. And I'd also like to introduce to everyone as we kick off this new cycle, Dr. Jeremy Owa, the ADE Assistant Commissioner for Educator Effectiveness. Dr. Mike Hernandez, who is our State Superintendent for the Office of Coordinated Support and Service. You want to wave so they know who you are? Okay. And I'm also very pleased to introduce to you our newest panel member. She is very new to her role, and we welcome her and are glad to have Dr. Angela Kramers, who is the Deputy Director for Career and Technical Education at the Arkansas Department of Career Education. And I've told her that if at any time she has any questions to please stop and be sure to ask us. I would also like to introduce Mike Wilson, who is an education advocate and attorney in Jacksonville, and Dr. Nackerman Williams. Dr. Williams is a former State Board of Education member. We also have Toyce Newton on our panel, and she is unable to be with us today. As chair, my goal is to facilitate a fair and responsible hearing. I will request that each person speaking please state your name and title for the record. And we also need to be sure that everyone speaks into the microphone because not only is it for our audience here today, but for our viewing audience as this is being live streamed. We're also pleased to have us with us here today, Susan Whitson, who is our court reporter, and she will be taking care of providing that transcript for us as well. So at this time, we will go ahead and get started with our agenda. And the first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to discuss any of these items? And then if not, I will accept a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is approved, and we will now move forward with our action agenda. And as we get started, I will ask for our first item. We are looking at requests for open enrollment charter school amendments and our standards for accreditation. So Dr. Alexandra Boyd will be talking to us about this item. Dr. Boyd, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alexandra Boyd, Director of the Charter Unit. This morning, we want to talk to the panel about how to proceed with potential charter amendment requests in order for charters to get waivers of the new standards. And to best explain that, I would like for the Assistant Commissioner of Public School Accountability to come and describe to you what has happened with the standards for accreditation. And then we'll walk through some potential options and have some discussion about the process. All right. So I'd like to call Ms. Deborah Kaufman up.
Good morning. Deborah Kaufman, Assistant Commissioner of Public School Accountability. Standards for accreditation. Arkansas monitors all schools and districts and accredits them as public schools in the state of Arkansas. Other states may use vendors or have outside agencies that accredit their public schools. but Arkansas has had a long history of accrediting schools through the Department of Education and the State Board of Education. In 1960, we have a copy of Standards for Accreditation when then Commissioner or Director was Arch Ford himself. They're very interesting to read if you'd ever like to read them, but we know for a fact, because we do have that document, that Standards for Accreditation go back as far as 1960. They may go back further. We don't have a copy of those. They're very interesting to read, and over time, those standards for accreditation have been updated. Most notably, Act 445 of 1983, which was the Quality Education Act, pulled together a group of people, stakeholders in the state of Arkansas, facilitated by then Hillary Clinton, wife of the governor, to look at the standards for accreditation. And through a very lengthy stakeholder engagement process, those standards were updated and became effective June 1st of 1987. Since that time, there were revisions and updates, but no major overhaul. So we had the 1960 version, the 1987 version, and then we've worked on them, tweaked a little here and there as different laws were passed and rules were changed. But this past year, well, actually this past 2 years, stakeholders have been coming together to look at the standards for accreditation. And in 2018, we find ourselves needing to have a very large update. And so before you, you have a packet of the newly approved Standards for Accreditation 2018 version. This version takes all of the best things from the previous standards, plus puts in more modern, up-to-date information about what's the current status of education in Arkansas. We use these standards to accredit our public schools. As you look at the table of contents, or as you begin to leaf through that, the first 9 pages really go over the rules for how we accredit schools in the state, the entire process. And then, if you flip to page 10, you will see Appendix A, and that's where the actual standards that we measure or that we monitor schools and districts for are located. So in that appendix, the standards are grouped into 6 systems. These are the 6 systems that we would expect to see within an educational system. So the 6 subsystems: academics, student support services, district operations and physical governance, human capital, stakeholder communication and engagement, facilities and transportation. And so as we look at our last slide, I want to leave you with the slide because these 6 systems are the systems that we talk about with our school districts. It's the systems that we're looking to see if the schools have those systems working, if they're working effectively independently, and are they working effectively together to ensure the very best student-focused education for Arkansas students. You'll see this slide many, many times because we utilize this slide in public school accountability in our conversations with schools about the support districts are providing schools, the support the department can provide to the schools as well. I would ask you to put this packet of standards in your bag, in your notebook, or wherever, and bring with you to each charter panel meeting, because going forward, we'll be aligning the work to these standards for accreditation so that all of our charter schools may be accredited.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Does anyone have a question for Ms. Kaufman then?
Yes. Obviously, these standards affect all the schools in the state of Arkansas.
That is
So
correct.
is there a plan to systematically go through to implement the new, I'm assuming several schools, other than charter schools, have waivers?
Yes.
So what's the plan for all the schools, along with the charter schools?
And I think Dr. Boyd is going to address that next. We just
Okay.
wanted to give you kind of that background
Okay.
and kind of an understanding that when the standards for accreditation were revised, it really was a major overhaul
Oh,
to
absolutely.
the whole accreditation process. So I believe Dr. Boyd is going to get into that. And if we have some more questions, we'll sure ask.
And you'll see as you read through these standards that we've taken into account present day education. So you'll see waivers included and expected in some of these areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. All right, so the important thing to remember is that the previous standards have been repealed, and we have these new standards, which no one has a waiver of, which Dr. Williams brought up. So we have to think about how we're gonna get everyone waivers. So there are different ways to get waivers. We have open enrollments, district conversions, schools of innovation, and then Act 1240. The open enrollment and district conversion are under your purview. So we want to talk about what processes we should use under your direction to update the waivers for open enrollments and district conversions. Schools of innovation fall under the commissioner's purview, and then Act 1240 are under the state board, but the way the law is written is that a district cannot have a waiver from under Act 1240 unless an open enrollment charter to which they're losing students from their resident district to the open enrollment charter also has that waiver. So Act 1240, districts can't get waivers under Act 1240 of the standards until the open enrollments have waivers of those standards.
Okay.
So that's important to remember on the front end. We've been thinking about this, the charter office and ADE Legal has been thinking about the processes. We've come up with 3 options that we think could work for getting the charter's waivers of the new standards for accreditation. The first option is that the charter schools work with the ADE Legal and the charter unit staff to map across the waivers that they had of the previous standards to the current standards. We would do this through short conversations and discussions about what they actually need to accomplish their goals as charters. And if we can all come into agreement on those, then we would like to bring those to you kind of as a big chunk of amendment requests. The second option is that if a charter and the charter office and ADE Legal can't get on the same page, then a charter could come to you through a formal amendment request process and ask for an amendment to their charter, which would include the standards for accreditation and anything else that they saw fit. The third option is that if we don't do option 1 or option 2, and it comes to a point where a charter is, the accreditation status is in question, then you could call the charter before you and we could negotiate what's needed to amend the charter at that point. So do y'all have any questions about the options laid before you, or do you have any additions?
I just think it's gonna be a combination of all 3. I think the plan, I can see doing option 1, there may be one specific waiver that we might need to hear. But it sounds like an excellent plan. I was looking at, this is a huge undertaking, you know,
That's
and I was just
correct.
wondering how we're gonna, but mapping that over just kind of takes away what I was really concerned about. I didn't wanna have to hear every waiver again. Okay.
Well, excuse me.
Mr. Wilson, you have a question?
Thank you. It sounds like option 1 is your preferred or suggested option with 2 and 3, as Dr. Williams said, to be able to modify those if there's not agreement. I like the idea of option 1, but being able to fall back on 2 or 3 if there's not an agreement.
So, Dr. Boyd, if I just want to make sure then that we are clear. So basically, the charter office has laid out 3 different options and is asking for feedback from the panel. And so far, the feedback is the panel hopes that option 1 is going to cover most charters. However, we also realize that there may need to be option 2 exercised, or 3, especially if there are questions about, specific things, but it could be much, even working with the charter office through option 2 could really cut down on the magnitude of any amendment requests. So basically what you're asking is the panel to approve what you've laid forward as the way we proceed with
Yes,
mapping
ma'am.
those.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Does the panel have any other questions? Dr. Kramer?
In the instance of option, where it may progress to option 2, option 3, if it goes to that point where negotiation is necessary, is there a time-limited process at that point? Is it?
Right. So at the point that the school, for option 3, the new accreditation status starting in October is going to happen on a monthly basis. So we should know in October whose accreditation status is in question. The process works that if you're going to call a charter in, you do have to put them on notice. And hold on one second. I just want to double check. So we have to give them a 35 days notice. So if you notify them at your November meeting, then we could potentially hear them at the December or January meetings. For the amendment request process, amendment requests are heard in October and February. They can be heard at other times with permission from the commissioner.
Are there any other questions from the panel? So if not, I would accept a motion to approve this as a recommendation from our charter office moving forward.
So move.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes, and Dr. Boyd, we will look forward to working with everyone on this process.
Right, so
Thank you.
hopefully you should see some of these requests on your September agenda. Hopefully 29, but maybe not. Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to move forward on to our next action agenda item, which is going to be the hearing of an open enrollment charter school application. Before we call the school up, I'd like to have our staff attorney, Ms. Mary Claire Hyatt, to come forward and explain the hearing process and the voting process and how we're going to need to proceed through this section.
Good morning, everyone. Mary Claire Hyatt with the department. Okay, so anyone who is not an attorney that's representing one of the parties who plans to provide any type of testimony or answer questions needs to be sworn by the chair. The open enrollment public charter school applicant will have 20 minutes to present its presentation to you. The chair, you can grant additional time if you believe it's necessary. Any party that's opposed will also have 20 minutes to respond, and that's collectively. So if there are multiple people, then they would need to all be within the 20-minute timeline. Of course, the chair also has the ability to grant additional time if necessary. The open enrollment public charter school applicant will then have 5 minutes to respond, and you can grant additional time if necessary. Then you can follow with questions, any outstanding concerns about the application to the opposing parties, to the applicant itself or otherwise. And then you may issue a final decision, or you can take the matter under advisement until a future meeting. You can also defer to vote to approve or disapprove the application in order to allow the applicant to make modifications or receive any type of technical assistance. And then if you are going to vote to approve or disapprove, it's best to do by roll call. And I know you guys have the Google Sheets where you will enter your reasons for voting, how you vote.
Okay, panel, are there any questions for Ms. Hyatt before we proceed? Okay, at this time I will ask Ms. Perry from our charter school office to come forward and introduce us to our first applicant.
Good morning, Virginia Perry, Program Advisor with the Charter Unit. Focus Academy of Arts and Sciences is a proposed open enrollment public charter school to be located within Bentonville School District. The sponsoring entity is Focus STEM Academy of Benton County. The applicant is requesting to serve students in grades K through 8 with a maximum enrollment of 900 beginning in the 2019-2020 school year. The applicant has notified affected districts of the proposed public charter school. ADE staff reviewed the application and concerns were shared with the applicant for a response. The application, the ADE evaluation, and the applicant's responses are included for the charter authorizing panel. Speaking today for Focus Academy will be Dr. Jessica Thompson, volunteer, and Ben Fauché, board member.
Okay, well, all representatives of the application and anyone speaking in opposition, please stand to be sworn in. Okay, if you'll raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. And you are recognized. If you'll come to the microphone and state your name for the record, you'll be recognized to begin your presentation, and you have 20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Jessica Thompson, and I am here with Focus Academy.
And that is fine, thank you. I know that microphone's hard to keep, but just,
It
as
is.
close as you can have it to your mouth will be great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm here for the Focus Academy of Arts and Sciences. I'm an adjunct professor at Northeastern State University, and I recently became Dr. Thompson, so I'm excited about that. Okay,
Congratulations.
thank you. Our mission at Focus Academy of Arts and Science will provide students a place to explore academic learning concepts through interdisciplinary projects that combine science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We will support all students to success through increased parental involvement, increased physical activity, and an emphasis on music education. Focus Academy of Arts and Sciences values community involvement, seeking to engender and model the philosophy of community service at all levels, from our staff to our students. So we're really excited about the community involvement and the servant leadership. Okay, Micah Cummings-Sparrow will be the executive director. She has 15 years of experience teaching math, science, and reading. She's a lead teacher, team leader, mentored intern teachers, PLC leader, district data team, teacher of the year, science department chair, and 5 years private sector experience in corporate training and project management. For the established need, we will have music, which will focus on music, which increases student motivation and engagement. There's a study that has been linked to more positive school culture, and I think you also got a copy of some of our research that we've done on that. Increased focus and cognitive skills that help students perform better academically. And music also is access to music education varies widely in Northwest Arkansas. And I'm pretty sure we'll be the only school that starts music education at kindergarten level, which is exciting. Goals. Our academic goals are K through 2. Students will make a minimum of 1 year's growth each academic year in the areas of reading, mathematics, as measured by the MAP assessment. Grades 3 through 8, students will meet or exceed regional average on the ACT Aspire assessments. As an organization, our goals are 80% or better attendance for parent-teacher conferences. And another difference in our school is we will actually have parent-teacher conference once a month. instead of just twice a year, which is really helps with that connection with the parents and having the parents involved in our school. At least 20 community stakeholders will sign in as volunteers. 95% of staff and students meet the required hours of service. So service, learning, and community involvement is going to be a huge part of our school. Okay, here is an overview of our innovative model. We have STEAM education in the middle, career education, collaborative teaming, physical, music, art education, project-based learning, parental involvement, and social innovation. For parental involvement, we're going to have monthly parent-teacher conferences, an advisory board of 5 parents they will kind of be the voice of the students and the parents as far as keeping us in touch with what they want and what they need in their school. School events will have projects and the hands-on project-based learning, and then they'll display those along with kind of like science fairs, kind of like that, and then we'll have music recitals and intramurals. Project-based learning incorporates student choice, integrated across the curriculum, and dedicated time during school. For physical education and our music, we will have support academic growth, positive school climate, active engagement, higher motivation, engage Northwest Arkansas's music community, and it will be just plain fun. For teaming, we'll have grade level teams, partner with specialist members, parents on behalf of the students, curriculum, inquiry, and cognitively guided instructional methods. Career education. Career information begins before 8th grade. We want to have guest speakers, project research, careers through core content, field trips, and workplace visits. Framework for career orientation will be incorporated into STEM. Explorations for 8th grade, job shadowing, mentoring, workplace visits and tours, and college tours. So start them young, thinking about their career. Social innovation, students involved in the community service, on-campus service opportunities, Mudagrees program. So that's going to be one of our big things at our school is the students going out into the community, supervised, working in their community, service learning. STEAM education, be curious, explore new ideas, do projects, research, be active, be a part of something, be social. That's what our STEAM is going to be. Okay, elementary K through 4, interstructural support teams, ratio will be 1 to 16. Classroom teacher, classroom aide, interventionists like dyslexia, ELL, special education, guidance counselors. Hands-on experience in the classroom for students to explore and investigate. That goes back to that project learning that I talked about. Hands-on musical instrument training beginning in kindergarten and continuing every year. We were thinking that ukulele might be a neat way to start in the younger grades with their little fingers. So just get them involved in music right off the bat. Middle grades, 5 through 8, student-selected projects, engaged in meaningful science and mathematics, mentors, job shadowing, high technology utilization, and so they will be ready for advanced placement in high school. And on that, back to that slide that we just talked about, the student-selected projects, if you can get the students learning intrinsically instead of, I'm forced to do this for my grade, when they're selecting their projects and they're working on them and they're excited about their learning, that would be one of our goals. Okay. Music education, increased cognitive development, better verbal skills, increased brain activity, greater spatial awareness, increased academic performance, greater attention span and focus ability, and being musical. So these are all the goals of music education. All grades twice a week. K, instrument discovery, like I said, maybe the ukulele. First grade will have a piano lab. Second grade piano lab. Third grade we'll start guitar lab. Fourth grade guitar lab. Fifth and sixth grade beginning band. And seventh through eighth grade intermediate band. Parental involvement, monthly parent-teacher conferences, quarterly project expositions, music recitals, concerts, be a guest speaker, parental advisory council for the parental involvement. Community involvement. Our goal is to build business partnerships, collaborate with us, mentor students, share their experience, job shadowing. Community service students and staff will perform 6 hours of community service each year, build relationships in our community, and give back. So we don't want them to be self-centered, we want them to be outwardly centered, and like the goal is to be involved in your community and focus on others. A Students Week at a glance. We have Smart Start, language arts, recess and lunch, music, visual arts, mathematics, science, daily wrap-up. And let's see, Tuesday, then they would go to the same things, except for they would have makerspace. And for our makerspace, we're interested in having robotics, hands-on building, crafts. There's a neat project through the National Science Foundation, through STEM, that they actually build a guitar. So what better program for our school than having the kids actually physically build a guitar and then learn to use it. Okay. 5th through 8th grade, they'll have English, reading, science, lunch, mathematics, social studies, STEM explorations, PE, advisory. So that's their basic schedule there for 5th through 8th grade. School partnerships and resources. Bridges in Math. You can see some of those, Moby Max, code.org, game plan. Let's see, Mudagrees, Bentonville Public Library. We already have a tentative contract with them. Phonics First Structures. So you can look at that list there. Food service. A food service provider will be contracted to provide tasty, high quality, high nutrition lunches to students. The executive director will oversee the operation with assistance from the child nutrition consultant. Transportation. A lot of parents will probably drive their children to school and pick them up. We're also working on a contract for shuttle routes to locations in Benton County based on students' needs, like some of the other schools in our area have done for transportation. Proposed location, 5121 Runway Drive, Bentonville. We have ADA compliant, a sprinkler system, security entry, tornado-related safe rooms. And the builder for our facility is willing to work with us, willing to, if the enrollment is lower, we'll have a smaller space that he's willing to lease, which will cut down on costs. And if we're bigger, he's ready to add on and build more for us. So he's very excited about this project. Meeting the needs of Arkansas students. This model improves student learning, increased educational opportunities for our diverse community, innovative teaching styles, collaborative teaching jobs that encourage teacher leaders, expanded school choices for families, and goals that keep us accountable to our community. And that is the end of my presentation. Hope you learned a little bit about Focus Academy and what our goals are.
Okay, and is there anyone here to speak in opposition? No? All right. You have about 7.5 minutes. Anything remaining you want to share with us, or are you ready for us to move forward with?
Dan, do you have anything? Okay.
Okay. All right. panel, what I'd like to do this time, instead of going straight to panel questions, I would like to ask for Dr. Boyd and Ms. Hyatt to come up and go through with us any unresolved issues or questions around the legal review. I think a lot of times our questions are about those unresolved issues or the legal review, so some of those may have been addressed during the presentation, and if so, they'll go ahead and note those for us, but we're going to try to kind of walk through those items also. I think Dan's going to try to keep up with some of those and maybe help us to narrow down our questions once we're finished here. So we probably will be asking the school to, Dr. Boyd and Ms. Hyatt may be asking the school to respond to some things. So we're gonna work through this. Okay. Dr. Boyd.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeffer. For those of you who are viewing, you may not be able to see the document. The document that we're looking at is the summary document, which is the first attachment on the agenda item. So starting with the educational need, the applicant did provide some more quantitative data for you all, which I passed out in the beginning. So we haven't reviewed this data, but you have it should you have any more questions about that. For the schedule of courses offered, we simply need the applicant to confirm that they understand that if they plan to embed courses, that they have to go through the ADE course approval process.
And if the applicant will come to the microphone, please. Dr. Thompson.
Yes, I confirm that.
Okay, thank you. And then for the student services, most of the concerns there have to do with SPED. So it remains unclear that the executive director position will have the needed credentials and experiences to supervise a special education teacher. Currently, they have named an executive director who has extensive education experience. However, there isn't any specific to special ed that I noticed.
Well, one of the things that we were considering is the assistant director may also have qualifications in special ed. So if that was needed, we would definitely do that.
So it's my understanding that you want to amend the application to say that requirements for the assistant executive director will be to have special education experience?
Yes, if that's required. Is that? It's not required, okay. Then no, we'll leave it as it is.
So that remains a concern. For the next one, it remains unclear that the applicant understands that some SPED students may require accommodations to state mandated summative assessments, including ACT Aspire and dynamic learning maps.
Oh, yes, we will provide accommodations for all SPED students.
Okay, and then the last one is a capacity question about a SPED teacher being able to also provide dyslexia services. Just from the department feels like that's a heavy lift to be in charge of SPED and dyslexia services.
We were thinking that we would shift that to the lead reading teacher, so that the teacher that we choose for the reading department, that she would take care of the dyslexic at a certain time, and then eventually we would like to hire someone just for that position.
Thank you. So that's all of our concerns for the application itself, and now Ms. Hyatt will come and talk to you about legal concerns with the waivers, unless you have any questions at this point.
And I was going to see if the panel member has any questions specifically related to those unresolved issues that were just asked. And I do want to go back on the supervision of the special education teacher. You know, I think in most schools in the state, you don't necessarily have your supervisor that would necessarily have special education background. And so that is not a requirement, as you stated. That's not something they would have to be held to.
It's not a requirement. Our experience has been with working with the special ed unit that the special ed position is a heavy position, and that they need support, and that support could come from a cooperative or somewhere else. In larger districts, there's a district coordinator, and then they help the teachers that are at the schools. And just our experience with working with existing charters, and especially new charters that have had issues with SPED, it's just something that we like to bring to light, that the SPED teacher is gonna need support.
Okay, and Dr. Owa?
In response to the comments about dyslexia, and you stated that the reading personnel would provide that support. My question is, based on your budget that you submitted, it did not indicate any monetary or funding for dyslexia, for the training or for the program itself. So if you could provide some insight on how you would meet those needs for the teacher, for support, for the training, as well as the interventions and support for the students.
Yes. Okay, let's see here. Okay, on line 37 of the expenditures, it says supplies and materials, and we budgeted what we felt was fairly high for that, and so we thought that we could use that for anything needed. Plus, we have a surplus in the budget, so we would definitely do training, whatever we needed to do for the dyslexic students, and to train that lead teacher. And if we need to send her, and we also have, let's see, what line? We could take that out of professional development also, and I'm not sure exactly what line that is on, but Dan, do you have that? Okay. I know we did budget for professional development. So either one of those, I would feel comfortable using those funds for that, for training and support and supplies needed for those students. Because I know that's a big, there's a difference between the dyslexic students and the special ed. I have a lot of experience in that.
Thank you.
Dr. Hernandez?
So you had mentioned as far as the shifting over to the lead reading teacher, so are you planning on having several top lead teachers, and what does that look like in terms of budget impact? We see like in your budget you have salaries allocated towards that. So is that an extended day contract? Is that a stipend basis, or is that just a, hey, you're a lead teacher designation?
I think it would be a stipend, and we could adjust, like in the hiring process, I think we would talk to the teacher about that and their experience, especially when we're hiring for that. We would say, do you have experience in this area? This is what we want you to do, and because of that, we would add to your salary. So I think we would all discuss that, at the beginning when we're discussing the hiring and the salary amount.
Okay, I think at this time we can move on to Ms. Hyatt and the legal review, and we'll ask the Dr. Thompson to stay up here, please, to answer questions.
Well, I don't know how we're going to do this because there is such a height difference between the two of us, but I'll stand on my tippy toes. So I think Alexandra passed out kind of a summary of the legal review. So for those watching, the document I'm going off of is just basically a summary of the legal review that was attached to the agenda. I just thought that this was a more concise way of reviewing it rather than having all the words. So in the middle column, you'll see waiver requests. These are based on the back and forth between the two legal reviews. The waiver request that the applicant is asking for. So there is some variation from the initial application to these waiver requests. And then anything in red is just something I need to get a little bit more clarification on. And just kind of briefly, because this relates to all of the charters that we'll hear over the next 2 days. Due to the change in standards, it was right in the middle of the application cycle for the open enrollment charter. So the applications were written with waiver requests for the old standards. So a lot of what we'll be doing is just making sure we get them under the new standards rather than the old. So if everyone's good with that, we'll just kind of start on number 1, which is administrator licensure. And the only thing here is just they'll need waivers from the standards. For principal licensure, and I'll let you confirm which ones you need. So for principal licensure, it would be 4C1 and 2. For superintendent licensure, it's 4B2. And then 4B1 is the requirement that the district employ a full-time superintendent. So if the superintendent's going to be hired by the CMO or not be full-time, then they would need a waiver of 4B1 as well. So I just need you to confirm which of those 4 you need. So is the principal licensure? So principal licensure is 4C1 and 2, so you can confirm that you.
I confirm that we need 4C1 and 2.
Okay. Superintendent licensure is 4B2.
Yep, we need 4B2, please.
And 4B1 is the requirement that the district employ a full-time superintendent. So if your superintendent's not gonna be full-time, or if it's employed by someone other than the district, like the CMO, then you would need that one. Okay.
Yes.
You just confirm. So I have
Confirm that.
4B1 and 2 and 4C1 and 2, and then that would resolve any issues on number 1. Number 2 is the teacher licensure. Same thing with the standards. The new standard is 4D1, and that covers teacher licensure, so.
Yes, I confirm that we need that.
Okay. And the waiver request for 615-1004 is a teacher licensure statute. The only part that has a requirement on the teacher is 615-1004D, not the entire statute. And so the request is currently for the entire statute, and so either just a little bit of clarification as to the need for the entire, or confirmation that you'd just like to seek Part D.
So basically, we want level teachers to be able to teach elementary and middle. So is that?
So you have the teacher licensure waiver from standards. The part of the law that says that teachers that are not licensed can't teach is 400D, or 1004D, rather than the entire law. The other part of the law is more, this is how you get teacher licensure, and doesn't really have an impact on schools, more so the teachers themselves and the department.
Okay, we were also thinking that we may be interested in hiring music professionals that are interested in getting their teacher license. So would that be the other part of the?
No, so that's still a teacher licensure waiver.
Okay, so then we just need 4D.
Okay. Would that be easier? Thank you. Okay.
That does help. Thank you.
Okay, on number 3, employee contracts, there are no remaining issues. On number 4, which is school board, during the legal review, Focus Academy of Arts and Science rescinded some requests for 608, which is the length of the board of director term, 611, which is vacancies and how you fill them, and 634, which is the size of the board. But based on the application, I believe that those waivers are necessary. And so I believe that you need those waivers in order to effectuate your goal.
Okay.
So if you're okay with that,
Yes.
just confirm it.
I'll
Okay.
confirm that.
Okay. Similarly, 613, 609, 610, 614, 627, and 633 have been repealed. So there's no waiver necessary for those, and those were included in the request.
Okay. So we don't need it.
Okay. And that's it on number 4. Number 5 is good. Number 6, same thing. Applicant rescinded the request for section 4 of the ADE rules governing student special needs funds, but that's a waiver that they will need in order to effectuate their waiver for alternative learning environments. And they need a waiver under the new standards instead of the old, and the new standard is 2I1.
So we will need those.
Yes.
Okay, I confirm that we need those then.
Number 7, gifted and talented is just a standards, kind of walkover. 2G1 is the new standard for gifted and talented, rather than the old section 18, so just a confirmation, that you're gonna get it under the new standard.
I confirm.
Okay, number 8, media center standards again. The new standard sections are 4F1 and 4F2, which covers licensure of the library media specialist and then the ratio of students to per library media specialist. And those will be necessary to effectuate the waiver of the law.
Okay, I confirm.
Okay, personnel policies, this is just one of the ones where I had needed a little bit more information. I was just unsure, based on some of the rationale provided, exactly what they were trying to do with the waiver, so it was kind of hard for me to understand which sections they would need a waiver of to effectuate their goal. And so if we could get a little bit more information on that, so we can make sure you have everything you need.
Okay. On the,
Personnel policies, so the waiver request as it stands is a waiver request from having the policies, posting them on their website, incorporating them into teacher contracts, giving copies to teachers, and then having them for classified employees as well, and incorporating them into the classified employees contract. So those are kind of the questions, how you plan on doing your personnel policies and that kind of stuff.
okay. As far as I can tell, we would like just to follow the ADA or the ADE rules with that and just follow the procedure. I don't think we need a waiver, do we, for anything like that? I think we're just gonna follow the steps, you know? Yeah.
Like I'm on karaoke. Dan Foshi, board member, and we will develop and publish our personnel policies. The work of the policy committee will be done by the Parent Advisory Council, and we'll have 5 teachers and the school administrator as members. We would like to request waivers of 617-205, 617-2303, and rescind the requests of 617-201 at all.
Okay, can you just say that last part again so I
Yeah.
have it for my notes?
And in the microphone a little more, please.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
I may spit a lot. We would like to rescind requests of 617-201 et sequitur and 617-2301 et sequitur. The Academy would like to request waivers of 617-205 and 617-2303. We will develop and publish our personnel policy on the website.
And I think you'll need a waiver of 617-209 to effectuate the waiver of 617-205.
We would like to request that waiver as well.
Great. That resolves any remaining issues there. Just the last few. Number 10 is guidance counselors, and it is, first, they'll need a waiver of Arkansas Code Annotated Section 618-1001A2 in order to effectuate their waiver, and they will need waivers under the new standards of 4E1 and 4E2 rather than the old standards.
Okay, I confirm that we need those waivers.
Okay. I'm going to skip number 11 and come back to it at the end. Number 12, start and end dates. Based on the legal review, the request was rescinded, but I don't believe you're starting your new calendar until the second year of operation, so I think you need a 2-year waiver of 610-106.
I confirm that we need that waiver.
Okay. Number 11 is school nurse. These are health and safety rules and laws. Charter rules and charter laws prohibit the waiver of health and safety rules and laws. Arkansas Code Annotated 623-401 prohibits those waivers. So I believe that these waivers are prohibited.
We rescind that waiver. We are going to hire a full-time nurse. We're going to contract the nurse actually out.
Those are all the remaining legal issues. So I think we're good to go as far as legal is concerned.
Okay, so at this time, I know there were a lot of waivers there to think through and digest through, but it does help also going back and looking at the document that Ms. Kaufman provided. So if you have questions on any of these waivers or something, you want to make sure that you clearly understand what has or has not been waived, I'll ask the panel to address those at this time, and then we'll move on to then any remaining questions from the panel. So we'll start. Mr. Wilson, do you have anything with the waivers? Okay. Dr. Hernandez?
I do have a question. So on employee contracts, it referenced that grievance procedures will be outlined in the personnel policy manual. And so I don't know that I'm fully clear on the personnel policy waivers, exactly what you guys are planning to do, whether to have one or not. I know I heard him say about posting it on the website, and then also there was a reference to ADE policies. We don't have a policy procedure manual as a template, and so I was wanting to get clarification of where the policies that you would be looking for would come from, and that can get kind of messy if you're not careful with that. So I just kind of want to hear about the plans to, if there's going to be a policy manual, and the plans to how to get there.
Okay, for the policy manual for the teachers, is that what you're in the personnel? I'm a big advocate of sharing information, so I'm sure that we would look at other districts and their personnel manuals and create a document based on what they've done, and then of course follow the standards or what's required. So.
And if I may, I think that on number 3, the employee contracts, what they're waiving is teacher fair dismissal and classified employee dismissal. And then in the personnel policies section, they're not waiving having the personnel policies and having them posted and giving them to the teachers and the employees. So just the fair hearing parts.
Okay. Does that address? Okay. Dr. Owen, any waiver questions? Dr. Williams?
Yeah, mine's maybe a little bigger question. Is this pretty much, we went through a lot of waivers. Is this going to kind of be, until we make this transition, kind of the standard operating procedure to have this many waivers? On one hand, I'm thinking if we're, as I listen to you all go through the waiver process, the thing that comes to my mind is, are you ready? I mean, have this been discussed? Has it been worked out? You know, kind of what is the status of the application if we hadn't resolved these waiver issues? Now, if it's part of the fact that the waivers have changed, the accreditation standards have changed through the application process, I understand that. But if it's a question of all of these waivers and it's not related to that, then I wonder, are we ready? Is this application ready? And I defer to ADE staff to address that.
So just in terms of the standards, part of the reason why we had to go through so many of these is due to the change in the standards and making sure that we had the correct standards and not under the repealed standards. And so I think that is unique to this application cycle, because next time those will be the standards that are in place during the application cycle. So I think we will experience that through all of the charters this application cycle, but not necessarily in the future. Any of the additional ones that were about law or being unclear, those are separate from the standards transition, and so those will vary by charter.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Kramer, do you have any questions at this time?
Do not.
Okay. I do have one waiver related question, or two actually. on the guidance counselor, so if it's my understanding that are you waiving hiring a guidance counselor or just hiring one with the license? You're just waiving the licensing portion of that?
I'm pretty sure that the waiver, and I'm new to all the waivers and things like that. I'm more of a vision of the school person, but I'm pretty sure we were interested in hiring people that, not necessarily a school counselor,
Okay.
but someone with a degree in counseling.
Okay.
So we can.
And then the other question then is, you did rescind the waiver for the school nurse and said you'll be contracting
Yes.
that out. Is that included in your budget?
Yes, it is.
Okay, when I looked at the health services, you have a physical education teacher there. Am I just missing the nursing in the budget?
I looked at that yesterday evening, and I know we have it in here.
It is in the budget? Okay.
It is in the health services.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So does that take us through all of those remaining issues or legal
Yes,
review
ma'am.
questions? Okay. All right, so hopefully that has addressed maybe some of the questions that were there. So at this time, panel members, if you have any other questions as you look through the application that you would like to address, we'll go through. I'll start again with Mr. Wilson to see if he has any questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I noticed in your application, there was a public hearing in April, and maybe one or more. Then 5 families attended. It said, give me some idea of the demand, the public demand, parental demand for a charter school in that area.
Okay. Well, in our county, there's 50,000 students, and we have 810 seats there. So there is a need in the other schools in the area. So in the other charter, is it the other charter schools, Dan, or is it the other? Yeah. So 50,000 students, 810. There's a waiting list at the other charter schools in our county. So we feel like there is a need, and the other charters don't start music as early as our school will.
You won't have a waiting, your focus does not have a waiting list at this point.
We haven't actually publicized. We wanted to get approved first and then start, since we won't start till the following year. So we were going to start advertising and getting community interest in.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hernandez, do you have questions?
Wants to ask them all or rotate around?
You can ask 2, and then we'll move on and come back. How's that?
Exciting.
When you said all, that,
Yeah.
okay, so your top 2 at this time.
So the first one is, if you go to the section that were required information, or I don't remember what the title exactly was, of additional documentation, there's a copy of a lease agreement in there. And so my question, the pit building that you showed at the 5121 runway, it reflects that this lease agreement was signed in April of last year, or 2017. And the way it's written, it says that this is approved, basically, that if it's ready to go by August of 18. And so, being that this could be potentially approved by the charter authorizing panel today, and then wouldn't be approved by the state board potentially until September, and you wouldn't be in until 2019. So what I'm asking is this lease the most current up-to-date lease, and will it be valid by the time that you actually would take possession of the property? Because the way it reads, it's not, that maybe there should be an updated lease agreement, and so that's a question.
I'm fairly sure that there is an upgraded lease agreement, and the owner of the building is a very big supporter of our charter, and he's excited about it, and he's actually offering us like some gift money towards the lease. So he's very excited about the project, and he's still on board. And I'm not sure, do you know about the updated lease?
The lease would still be in effect. It was not, I understand your timing point, but that would be in effect. He is still committed to the project, and
Okay.
with all the strictures.
And that just may be something to double check on and get a written one, because I would just wouldn't want to move down the road and then you guys all of a sudden are getting ready for school and then, hey, we've seen that happen, you don't have a building. So that would be something to check on. Second question, in your goals, you had listed as one of your goals having 20 volunteers. So does that mean, are you talking about 20 volunteers a month, a year? What does that mean when it says that your goal is to have 20 volunteers that sign in?
Are you talking about the business partnerships?
Just kind of the way it's written in the application, and then what was in the presentation, that one of your goals was to have 20 volunteers, and that's why I'm not sure, so that's why I'm asking.
Right. The 20 would be various partnerships, be it individuals, parents, business individuals. I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you. It would be various business individuals. It would be parents. It would be just a variety, but it would be 20 people. And it would be, I think we would start with that per year. But, you know, as it allows and as it grows, we would certainly be more responsive.
Okay, so it's more about business partnerships, but so it's not
necessarily.
It's not parents coming, signing in, and working with the kids, or it is.
It could be.
Okay.
We're trying to be very flexible on that. What we really want to do is not only engender a sense of student leadership and servant leadership, is we want them to have as diverse a mix of experiences. So parents, and as they go through their careers and their lives, they will have something to give, as well as business and local nonprofit leaders. We want to make sure that they have just a broad spectrum of things to draw from.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Owa, questions?
I'll,
Two. Limit to two, and then we'll move.
I was just going to say that I'll ask my top two. One, as we look at your educator staff, how would you ensure for that Arkansas qualified teacher, those requirements are met before hiring your teaching staff? What would be your process?
We would definitely look at the resume and make sure we have copies of the teaching certificate, and definitely call references to find out, you know, how the teacher was at other schools. Look at their education. We want highly qualified teachers at our school, and but everything like that's on a piece. I mean, we're going to definitely follow that, but checking those references and finding out what other people have said about the teacher, I think, is huge.
Okay, because I just want to make sure that we're clear that AQT, those requirements need to be met before the teacher actually enters the classroom or is hired. So,
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
And my follow-up question for now is, how would you ensure, what's your process of ensuring that all background checks for the required staff members are completed before they enter the school setting as well?
That would go through our HR person, and no paychecks until basically until the background check has come in. So yeah, effectively you won't sign your contract until everything has come through.
So are you saying before the payroll check or before the first day of school? What would?
Before the first day of school, definitely before the first day of school.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Williams?
Yes. They've addressed a couple of my questions. One was around, how do you want to go about recruiting students? I live in Washington County, worked in Benton County for 22 years, so I'm very familiar with the landscape. And I know enrollment is kind of flattening out a little bit. So how do you go about, I think we're beyond, if you build it, they will come.
Right.
So what do you all plan to do from a recruitment standpoint for students? in your numbers that you're looking at a lot of students over the years when you're looking at capping out about 900 students. So do you have any recruitment plan?
I would say definitely use social media, the newspapers, have some events, host some free or events, information, get them there, get them talking. Are you interested in music? We're gonna have so-and-so come, bring all the children, and we're gonna maybe, I have a friend that's a musician. Invite him to come, invite the community, they come, we talk about the school, and he plays music. I mean, I don't know, Dan, do you have some ideas on recruitment?
In addition to what she said, there are also several community-based, like First Friday. We would also go to, there's similar events in Rogers and in Fayetteville. We would go to those and drum up support and interact one-on-one, because we found that when you have that, I mean, even if they're not directly involved, or my child's a little too old for that, that's fine, but I bet you know someone, and we'll engage them that way.
So to follow up on that, I'm still on one question. The follow up on that, what do you intend to draw from? Like, we have some charter schools that come in and they say we're going to try to hit this zip code. We're going to focus on maybe addressing low income students and so forth. So are you all looking to draw from both Benton and Washington County, or just Benton County? Kind of where you're looking to draw students from?
It would primarily be from Benton County, but
Mm-hmm.
we want to leave it open to those residents who may be on maybe the northern part of Washington County, or really anywhere, because we're going to have transportation routes set up.
Okay.
So it would be from both. Fort Smith might be a stretch.
Okay, thank you.
I have something to add to that. For the low-income families, we have a neat program where we are going to do, because instruments can be expensive, we included that in part of our budget where they will be able to have instruments provided. So get the hands on the instruments right off the bat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Kramer.
For your service-based learning, is that voluntary or is it mandatory? Part one of question. And then part two, when they're doing the project-based learning, such as the robotics example that you gave, is it explicitly tied to a curriculum? Is it a model example that's just been provided? And what is the teacher's involvement in that project-based learning?
When we hire the teachers, we will talk to them about the community involvement. And for the students, it is going to be required. Now, we will let that be something that they're already involved in through their school or their family or their church. That can count towards those hours, because some students are going to be like, I don't have anything, they don't have an option. But we can talk to them about, all the definitions of community service and what they're already doing, and so we can count those. So basically, teachers will have to use part of their time. I mean, we're not going to make them every evening do that, but for their class, if some of their students need something, then that'll be part of their job to go with the students. Hey, we're going to do this in the community. We're going to do this at the senior citizens this week. And we want all of you that haven't finished your hours, we want you to attend, and I'm going to be there. The teacher would be there also.
And could you answer the question about the link to curriculum? So they're doing projects. So there was STEAM embedded. So I'm trying to see where the curriculum link is with STEAM and how the teacher's role kind of in that piece of it.
Yeah, it would definitely be linked to the curriculum. Some projects may be outside of the curriculum if they're very interested in it and it's educational. We don't want to say, no, you can't do that. You can't focus your study, your research on that. We want to let them have some freedom and choice because of the intrinsic learning. If they're excited about it and they're interested in it, they're going to want to do it. But most of the projects that we offer, they're going to be linked to the curriculum.
Okay, a couple of things that I had noted that I wanted to ask about. In your literacy program, you are going to use Ready Gen, and it talks about a balanced approach using all language modalities to respond to authentic texts. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about why that one was chosen, and I may also want, if we have someone here from the Department of Ed who could respond to that as far as a curriculum, and is it aligned with the science of reading approach?
I didn't actually pick the curriculum, and so I'm going to let Dan talk about that.
Our executive director could probably speak more in detail to why Ready Gen was selected, but my understanding, it is one of the leading, more comprehensive programs that would fit most with what our goals are.
Okay, and so in thinking about the science of reading and Arkansas's RISE initiative, with your grade span that you're going to be looking at, that is going to be a very, very critical component. So can you talk to me a little bit about your knowledge and background around the reading initiative, or specific things you're going to be looking at to ensure that your teachers get the training and meet the requirements for the legislation that's been passed for the proficiency in the science of reading, and how is that going to really be a focus for your students?
We will definitely look at, when we're developing our curriculum and our lesson plans, we will definitely align it with did you say it was the RISE? Is that what was?
RISE is the state's reading initiative. The science of reading is the legislation, the requirement that our teachers will have the knowledge and skills to actually instruct students from a scientific approach to teaching reading.
Okay. I teach at college, so I'm past that, but we will definitely do all the training needed for the teachers so that they can, and in lesson planning, if that's a state requirement, we will make sure that the teachers are looking at their lesson plans and aligning them with requirements.
But that the curriculum that you all have chosen, then you don't have anyone here to speak to why that was specifically chosen and whether or not it is a reading curriculum that is aligned with the scientific approach to teaching reading.
My understanding is that it is, and if it is not, then we will make sure that that is addressed. We do have funds available for professional development, as well as training, so that would be reflected.
Well, the adoption of your curriculum is going to be crucial in terms of what teachers actually will be teaching, and so that would be a big concern. And I would like to have a little more information on that before I'm comfortable. The only other question I have, and someone else had kind of alluded to, was in your goals. You have a specific math and literacy goal, and then you have your other goals. But both your academic and organizational goals, you really don't have anything with music. And I would expect that a school, that's going to be a major focus. It doesn't seem that that approach is really, if you don't have those goals, and I think I would need to know more about, is this really truly going to be a school where students are getting that music experience, or is just music something that you're going to do to enhance the learning program? And it seems just more right now that it's an enhancement rather than a really integral part of your charter. And because I'm not seeing that with explicit goals and really throughout. So that, I wanted to give you a chance just to maybe speak to that a little more.
Yep, I have that. Okay, in the application, on mine it's page 11. So it says, Year 1, all students K through 4 will participate in instrument discovery. Year 2, grades 1 through 4 will have piano lab, and that is built into the schedule that I posted, or that was on the slideshow. And then grades 2, year 3, they will have piano lab 2. Grades 6 will be added to the beginning band. So every single grade, every week, is it 3 days a week, or from the schedule, we'll have music instruction.
I thought I remembered it being 2 in the presentation.
It may have been 2. Tuesdays and Thursdays? Okay. So it is built into the schedule, and it'll be a big focus as far as this school goes. And I don't know, the recitals, that would be, I mean, our goals would be definitely to start in like by Christmas. I already have some kids on instruments and ready for Christmas program and things like that, but we can build that into our goals, the music, but it is going to be a big part.
Okay. All right. Panel, I know some of you may still have some questions, and we can go back through and have you ask questions. One other aspect that I've asked the department personnel to provide is people here that work in the department that address each of those 6 systems that we looked at. So we would have someone here who, from the department, who's reviewed the application, who could also answer any questions specific to those 6 systems. If you do not have a burning question for the applicant and you want to get more department perspective, or if there's a particular system where a department personnel has something that they want the panel to consider, we could let them speak now. So I'll ask you all, do you have another question that you want to go ahead and pose to the applicant at this time, or would you be ready to address anything maybe with anything from the department?
More for the applicant.
You got one more for the applicant, okay? Do you have any more for the applicant? Okay, we'll go ahead and finish up with those questions, and then we'll move to any input from department. Okay.
So in looking at your budget and how you have the 500 students listed as being year 1, and then looking at some of the sign-ins and of people that have been, I guess, coming to the hearings, I guess my question revolves around need and how, in reading through the application and questions that Dr. Pfeffer asked specifically about not really seeing that music goal setting. There's some activities around music, but what are you seeing that gives you confidence in that there is a need for this charter school in this area, and that you're going to get that kind of enrollment that you're seeking, that your budgets are built off of?
We would be the only charter school in the area that offered the music for the younger ages. The other schools started at an older age, so the parents that were interested in music, like right from the beginning at kindergarten. Also, the other schools in the area aren't as focused on community, and in the world we live in, I think, everybody's self-focused. And just to get that outward, that would be an awesome school to have that as our platform, as we're we're focused on servant leadership and developing students that are outwardly focused instead of inwardly focused.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I would also like to speak for the Northwest Arkansas area, we kind of take charters in stride. It's a more established idea. It's not that big of a trek to say, oh, well, or we'll go somewhere else, So in terms of our responsiveness on our public hearings, I think that just shows that it's kind of a common thing. It's not a real big deal. And as far as a specific need, I think that this is one of the biggest growing areas in Arkansas, and it's going to continue to do that. And we think that given the unique structures of our curriculum and the unique features such as the servant leadership, such as the early music, we think that that is enough of a draw.
Dr. Owa, you had a question for the applicant.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. In reference to the human capital system, my question is focused on the educators, both the teacher and the administrators. What would be your processes for recruitment, support, development, and retention? Seeing or just focusing on the current attrition of educators. So if you could kind of expound upon what would be your processes to ensure that, one, you attract the most effective educators for our students, as well as how would you support both the educators, the teachers, and the administrators, and then develop them and provide support to retain them.
As far as attracting educators, I think when we start advertising and they see the values and the goals, and I feel like some educators would be interested for their own children. You know, if they're big in music or in the developing the STEM and the building robotics, and they see a school that's going to be focused on the project-based learning, I mean, they may come over to our school as an educator and bring their children based on the things that we're going to be offering. As far as retention, I think community among the teachers and making them feel like they're a part of everything and they have a voice and that they're a leader in their community, that's going to be huge, because I know I have a friend that's an educator, and she left her school this year and moved to another one, and the one decision, the one question she asked me was, do the teachers collaborate and work together? And I was like, yes, they do. And she goes, okay, I'm leaving my school. So that, I think, is huge for educators, for teachers. I mean, they like, when I was in the public school, you know, when I was a teacher, working together, you're better together. So definitely building community, having events for the educators, professional development for them, things for them to do together and to bond. And that, I think that's huge. I mean, you work together to make the students better, and you work together to make each other better. That's how I feel. Do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? So if not, if we could put the system graphic back up there for just a minute, that Ms. Kaufman had shared with us earlier. And so these are the 6 systems that are included in our standards for accreditation, 6 systems that operate within a school district. And just for any remaining questions, if the panel, we'll go through and see if the panel has anything that kind of aligns with that, or if there's anything, I would ask ADE staff to share anything that maybe we need to consider or look at. So I think we can start with the academic system and go back to that question on the literacy program that has been chosen, which is ReadyGen literacy program. I don't know if our department staff is familiar with that, but if we could look at that part of the application and have one of our ADE specialists that's in that area, I think we have someone here, speak a little bit about the reading curriculum and the science of reading importance.
I do not know ReadyGen at all.
If you'll go ahead and just state your name,
I'm Sadie
please.
Shepard. I'm from Learning Services. My job is Rise Arkansas. I don't know the curriculum at all, ReadyGen. I've glanced at it just a second online. What we would need to do is do like we do with every other public school, is look at our rubric. We have a rubric. It's pretty detailed. It's pretty long, to make sure that it has all the components before we'd feel comfortable saying what they have is going to match the science of reading.
Okay.
So we have a multiple page document. We can have question and answer, but it would be putting them on the spot to know that pretty deeply. So
Okay.
however y'all want to handle that, I'm willing to be here and help.
Well, and they had said that they're unsure whether or not it aligns to the scientific instruction of reading, and the person who chose the curriculum is not with them today. So,
Okay. So we
that
can-
was something important for me to notice, whether or not we know if that has been addressed as part of this application.
That has not been turned in for an IPD review, so we've not gone deeply into it, and I've never seen it in action, so I can't speak as an expert on it at all.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes.
We would be interested in working with you and, you know, getting the correct curriculum. And then if that one doesn't meet the standards, then we would definitely be in favor of finding a curriculum that does.
Okay, so with regards to the academic system, is there anyone, any of our ADE personnel that has reviewed the application that would have anything that they would like for the panel to consider. All right. I know Dr. Owa has addressed several questions with the human capital system, personnel, supporting developing teachers, teacher recruitment and retention. Are there any ADE staff members that had anything to note that was not already addressed? Okay. Dr. Owa has one more related to that system, so we'll let him ask that.
If you could please provide some insight on how you would provide or ensure that code of ethics training would be provided.
That would be definitely provided at the beginning of the year during the professional development before school started, along with the special ed department as far as the rules and laws that follow it. So both of those would be presented before school started in professional development. And be part of, it would probably be part of the teacher handbook. The code of ethics would be in there. For the, are you talking about for the teacher?
Well, it's the code of ethics for all educators, the state of Arkansas code of ethics.
Yeah, it would be in there, and we would go over it during professional development.
Thank you.
Okay. The next system and student support, we've asked a few questions already related to the special education, the nursing counselors. So, Ms. Kaufman, do you have anything?
Yes, our question is, how will the school remove barriers that might prevent a student from having access to all of the learning opportunities? So today they were mentioning community service opportunities, and so a barrier to that might be travel, or there may be some additional expenses for equipment or materials, and so we're interested to know how you are planning to remove all barriers.
We would make sure, be it through contracting with a, in the case of like a physical barrier, we would contract with a builder or the builder itself of the building to make sure that that is removed and addressed. In the case of when we're going out and about, the project and the off-site visit would be kept in mind. We would make sure that we are going to some place that is accessible for those students. If there aren't, we would make sure that every student is capable of participating in that event, be it on campus or off.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in the activity fund that the principal has to work with, if there were students that couldn't afford a field trip, that monies would be taken out of that so that the student could participate. Because we don't want financial problems to hinder a student's participation. Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
We want to address financial barriers as well as physical.
Okay, in the stakeholder communication, family and community engagement system, I know we've talked about different things with the service learning and the volunteers. Are there any remaining questions from the panel in this area or anything from ADE? Okay. The next system, very important one, district operations and fiscal governance. And we've looked at some items in the budget. Are there any remaining questions from the panel as related to the applicant's fiscal operations or anything from ADE that would like to? Okay. All right. And our last is facilities and transportation. I know you noted in your presentation that you felt most parents would be bringing students to school. Is that based on percentages that you've looked at in the other schools within that geographic area that, you know, or are you fully anticipating what you might see in terms of students who need transportation? Because that can be a barrier if the perception is to parents that transportation may not be looked at as a very important system. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Also, one of the things that we want to offer is before and after school, so that if a parent is on their way to work and they need to drop off early or pick up late, that will be available. In the transportation budget, we have other areas, we have a surplus, and so we were anticipating if we need it and there's more need for transportation, we will definitely pull from that so that we can cover those costs. Because we had several estimates on the transportation. We kind of tried to put the middle one in the budget and then know that we have extra if we need to pull for it for the transportation.
Okay, thank you, that helps. All right, so that takes us through all of our systems, and I think we've done a pretty thorough job of going through. Panel, do you have any remaining questions? Okay, Dr. Boyd or Ms. Hyde, is there anything else that you can think of? Okay, so panel, at this time, we can make a decision. If anyone has a motion, I would entertain it at this time.
Could we get our options again on this?
Yes, I'll let Dr. Boyd go through that.
Thank you. So you can approve, deny, or you could table to a later meeting if there were additional information that you wanted. If in the case that you do deny, the statute states that we have to provide the applicant with the reasons why you deny. Mm-hmm. So you just want to be specific if that's the motion.
Okay. Just a comment on my part here. As I listen, there's just so many unanswered questions that keep coming back around that they're willing to make this adjustment, making this adjustment, and so forth. I don't think they're ready. I'm just going to say it that way. And I'm thinking in terms of tabling, or I'm open to other options from the board. You know, the reading program hadn't been vetted completely yet. Getting 500 students in year one is going to be a stretch in Benton County. So there are just some things that I like the part that there's a willingness to address whatever the issues are. That's not the question. The question for me is, are they ready today based on the presentation I heard? I think there's some things that we need to get worked out. Just looking at the reading program alone, I also share your concern with the music program. I thought it was an add-on. I didn't think it was totally incorporated into the curriculum. So that's where I'm at on this. It's just some unanswered things. It wasn't tight as it could have been for me. So.
Yep, Dr. Owa.
I move that we deny the charter school request application.
So I have a motion.
Question when you come to it.
Okay. Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Madam Chairman, if the motion carries, will the applicant be allowed to come back before this group at a future time? And I'm sorry, I don't recall the time sequence, but what happens next? What could they do next?
Mr. Wilson, there is nothing in statute that prevents an applicant for submitting a future application. But it would start, the next application cycle for open enrollment charter schools starts the first Tuesday of March. So it would be for the next application cycle.
So just to clarify, if an applicant is denied today, then they would not be opening, the timing would not allow them to be ready for the next school year?
That's correct. So it'd be the one after. So applicants right now, if that are approved during this process, would be able to open a school in the fall of 19. If this application was denied and they had to go back through the application process, then that would be delayed a year. And if they were approved in a subsequent application process, they would be able to open in fall of 20 at the earliest.
Then what would be the effect of a motion to table the application rather than deny it.
Right, so in the past, we have had an application table before where the panel requested more information. And then at the next panel meeting, the applicant was able to submit that additional information, and then a decision to approve or deny was made at that following meeting.
Okay, Dr. Hernandez.
So I think I agree with everything that Dr. Williams stated there, and I think where I was kind of feeling is going back to that need. I always feel like I've got to be compelled to do something, and I didn't feel that, there doesn't appear to be a lot of interest or a good solid plan of why this charter needs to be open at this time. And so I don't know if, putting it off a month or 2 months or whatever would give time to help that. So that's just kind of, where my thoughts are right now as far as the, this particular application.
So at this time, we do have a motion and a second to deny this application. Let's go ahead and vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the motion carries. The application is denied. We did have one dissenting vote. And so at this time, I would ask the panel to record your votes in the online tool that you were provided, and also state your reason. And if the applicant would stay, we will go through and give you some feedback and some information that may help you.
It's okay. I think I can do it right quick. Yeah, I had the wrong one. There we go here. I just clicked on the first one and I closed that one. And go to the second one, is it? Yeah. Yeah, I thought I was done.
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask the panel to verbalize their vote and the reason for their vote. And we'll start with Dr. Hernandez.
Okay, I voted for the motion. I have concerns about the need and support of the charter to be successful, especially without a solid plan of action around academics and recruitment of students.
Dr. Kramers?
Voted for. Have concerns about the curriculum, the required service learning, and the statement to provide the financial support, and I didn't see the line item in the budget specific to that. The ambiguity of how the projects and further evidence of learning linked to curriculum and articulation of the teacher's role, especially when STEAM is related.
Dr. Owa?
Made the motion to deny because I still have remaining concerns and unanswered questions on the curriculum supports for the students, educator support and development that would need to be provided, and then several unplanned and unclear sections of the application and preparation process.
Okay. Dr. Williams?
I supported the motion. There are unanswered questions, e.g. the reading program, the curriculum, that the presenters are willing to address, but I believe more time is needed to address these questions appropriately.
Okay, and Mr. Wilson?
I voted excuse me, I voted against the motion. I would have preferred to table the application to give the applicant sufficient time to demonstrate, sufficient time without foreclosing a whole year of waiting, but to demonstrate the demand and need and the interest of the public and parents in that area. I quite agree with Dr. Williams and Dr. Hernandez evaluations of the local situation.
Okay, we hope that you can take this feedback and be able to look over things, and we do appreciate you being here today. So at this time, we're going to take a break. Let's break until 10:30, and then at 10:30, we'll start our second, our review for our second hearing. Thank you.
said to him, no fair having fun.
Oh, brunch, that's right, yes, yes. Well, Doug said lunch will be ready at noon, so that'll be our target goal. He goes to fall. Okay, I'm ready, Dan. Okay, at this time, we will call our meeting back to order. And the next item on our action agenda is the hearing of open enrollment public charter school application, Pioneer Schools for North Little Rock, Arkansas. Ms. Perry, if you will come forward and introduce us.
Pioneer Schools is a proposed open enrollment public charter school to be located within North Little Rock School District. The sponsoring entity is Pioneer Schools. The applicant is requesting to serve students in grades K-12 with a maximum enrollment of 1,000 beginning in the 2020-2021 school year. The applicant has notified affected districts of this proposed public charter school. ADE staff reviewed the application and concerns were shared with the applicant for response. The application, the ADE evaluation, and the applicant's responses are included for the charter authorizing panel. Speaking today for Pioneer Schools is William Thomas Felton, Head Education Director.
Okay, Ms. Perry, before you leave, you mentioned K-12, and I just, in the application, the maximum grade level is K-9. So can we just get a clarification?
It is
K-9.
K-9,
Okay, I just
sorry.
wanted to make sure on that aspect.
Typo.
Okay, I understand. So will all representatives of this application and anyone speaking in opposition please stand to receive the oath? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Okay, thank you. If you'll come to the microphone and state your name for the record, you're recognized, and you'll have 20 minutes to begin your presentation.
My name is William Felton, William Thomas Felton. I am the head of schools for Pioneer Public Charter. When about 12 years ago, I started working on a school project to create a school that was targeted towards Arkansas and the needs of Arkansans and school teachers and the students therein. I've had 8 years experience at Martin Luther King where I started my career. I taught 2nd and 3rd grade and was one of the first East facilitators for an elementary school there. I spent 5 years, the first 5 years at East STEM. I then spent a year in North Little Rock, followed by 3 years as the CPA principal in Jacksonville. And then I was with Rockbridge for 1 year, and I am currently at Exalt Southwest. The mission statement is that Pioneer is a member of a community ecosystem guided by master teachers and student voice that will facilitate experiences outside the four walls to engage students to be passionate, empathetic, and global citizens, hoping to deeply get them to understand and adapt to this world in the future. A little explanation of that is that in a community ecosystem, we are actually looking at a community of individuals, not just teachers and administrators and students, but also parents and family, businesses, colleges, and local community leaders. For master teachers, we are looking at teachers that are trained heavily in what we call a program that will help facilitate learning from apprentice teachers. For student voice, when we talk about that, we really feel that it's beneficial if students give their input into what happens. When they realize their expertise and opinions matter, they tend to be more engaged and involved. And then the skills built during the process mirror those that the employers are asking schools to produce. Outside the four walls, even though it's a common phrase, we've learned through research that depth of knowledge is very important, and that Webb talks about the highest level requiring sustaining strategic thinking processes over a long period of time to solve a real life problem. With us being heavily engaged in the community, we're looking for those opportunities. Passion happens when a student enjoys going to school, when they can have their voice heard, they can create projects to show mastery. We do understand this is teacher facilitated, and my experience at Rockbridge Montessori showed that 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and kindergartners can actually become passionate about learning through their work cycle. A 3-hour work cycle where they get to investigate, work with teachers in small groups, and pretty much tinker and build things that they're interested in. This also requires makerspace and the use of Genius Hour. Empathy, we are quite aware that, empathy is something that is missing in a lot of youth. By teaching and employing empathy in the school, we can build positive classroom culture, strengthen the community, and prepare students to be leaders. A study from the Center of Creative Leadership says that empathy is positively related to job performance and that it can be taught by incorporating reading and culturally accurate books in the classroom. This also includes technology empathy. In 2012-16, the Department of Education established the International Strategy to Strengthen Education. This is sometimes referred under the larger umbrella of culturally appropriate schools. A globally competent student is one who can investigate the world, weigh perspectives, interact with different audiences, and take action. When we talk about understand and adapt, we're talking about how fast the world moves. When I was a kid, a cellular phone was in the shoe of a bumbling special agent. Now, technology is moving so fast. When I was a kid, I had no idea that this was coming. And today, our students are inundated with newness. When we look at the 5 pillars that we base Pioneer on, of course, the first is academic achievement. We want to ensure academics and student achievement is our top priority, and we believe the following pillars will only support that. When we talk about the Student Wellbeing Initiative, this is based on research that shows that students that have their basic needs and then are engaged into other activities help develop them into young leaders and enjoy going to school. We divided it into 4 sections: play and fun, mental and physical health, city and arts, and involvement and improvement. In each of these areas, we have a first-year plan when the school opens in 2020, and then as we grow in future years. We've already looked at, most schools request no counselor. We are wanting a counselor. We're also looking at cognitive behavioral therapists to deal with students that might be suffering from PTSD and other things that I have noticed in my time serving student populations as those. We are going to be a shared leadership school. We do believe that those decisions that impact stakeholders the most should have a leg in the game. Over the past several decades, a new model of interdependence has arose. Margaret Wheatley, she talks about the approach in which people organize together to accomplish more. She says behind every organizing impulse is a realization that by joining with others, we can accomplish something important we could not accomplish alone. That is why having the community, the parents, the students, local leaders in the process is so important. The teacher training program, this is something that we have not set forward because we need to work with the ADE and other organizations to ensure that we're in line with protocols and laws. We want to bring in everyone that's involved in this, local colleges, the ADE, and alternate certificate programs to plan how this would look. That is one of the reasons we waited an extra year to start so that we can do this and not be rushed. Even if it doesn't start until year 3 or 4, as long as we're doing what we feel is correct. I really feel like my experience as a student teacher did not prepare me for education, and I've worked as a mentor to a lot of first-year teachers. And the frustration was there are so many things that a teacher has to go through that they are not properly trained or prepared for those little bitty things that people don't think of. In this model, the master teacher will be working with the apprentice teacher for 2 years, and they'll be working side by side, not just observing, but co-teaching. Going to professional development together, researching data, talking to parents, managing the classroom. Career makerspaces, I've learned over the years with East Lab that constructivist approach in areas that are tied to standards and learning, where students have certain projects they want to build, to learn and understand more, to apply, is a great way for students to love learning. For early education, we've looked at the East Lab Project Lead the Way, and we don't want to go and say we're not teaching the basics. We do know these are things that the local businesses and leaders say that they want from their students, not only to be able to work in collaborative grouping or cooperate, but also to write and read, be able to problem solve, and be innovative. Tinkering spaces, or what we call labs, in the middle school will look more like these skills, both hard and soft. So we're hoping down the line to work with other high schools and then partner with other businesses to create these labs We've talked to several construction companies, VCC, Alexis Keys, and Hydra. We've talked to the architectural firm, ARS, Holiday Inn and Marriott. We've talked to all the local businesses down in the area of North Little Rock, and they would love this idea of kids going to school, learning skills that business leaders want them to know, and then building minor labs or labs specifically targeting certain skills. So for instance, one of the things DeSalt was talking was if we know in 2 years we're gonna need 30 leather workers, it would be great to work with local high schools. Now this sounds like a vocational school project, and it kind of is, and we would need to work with the ADE and Dr. Kramer's to set up that kind of thing, because we want to instill these skills from kindergarten up. The other thing is we want to invite other schools to come in and work with these other businesses and be the kind of agent between them. Now, if we have students that want to go to college, that is great. We want to make sure we have every option available for them. But I have seen, working in a high school, that forcing students to college because you want 100% college acceptance rate is not always the best thing for some students, especially when I have people in my family with no college degree that make 3 times as much as I do. To lessen the loss of instruction or regression of learning, we're doing an extended year with family breaks that are targeted around holidays. The daily will be extended, and the extended year will go from July to June. When we talk about curriculum, at Pioneer, we not only use curriculum and pedagogy that we can prove with evidence to move student achievement, we have experiences in training these curriculums over years in education. They will be developing, implementing, and assessing maps based on these curriculums. We do know that explicit instruction is very powerful because Dr. Hattie in his meta-analysis shows that. However, we also know that lining up with the science of reading, making sure that we have a strong foundation in phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary building, these things are also important. And we really want to make sure that these are taught through all teachers, through all grades and all subjects, having that basic knowledge. This will require heavy training for our teachers, both in reading and out of reading curriculum. But we know that research shows that this is the best way to help students read. The other thing is grasping phenomenal science is about real world science and phenomena that happens in the world. And then hands-on history incorporates reading and writing. When we talk about vocabulary in science, social studies, and math, we're looking at Marzano's instructional vocabulary instruction for explicit instruction. Now these are not set in stone. These are things that we're researching. We do like some of them, but there are other things that we're looking at that has a more phonetic awareness in higher grades and how that looks. We are going to have a pre-K to 12 career and college planning. This will be a specialist who will work making sure that we make students aware of these opportunities and pathways. We will be using PLCs. The 4-in-1 school week, we'll have 4 days on our academic schedule and 1 day what we call Pioneer Community Driven Enrichment Day. Now, teachers will be able to teach classes that they enjoy. So for instance, if I was a teacher, I enjoy photography. And teaching SIDS photography, you can tie in a lot of standards with that. But again, this is all led with instructional leaders who have a firm foundation in curriculum and instruction. Now, the community members that we've already talked to are interested in coming in and teaching sessions. For instance, we have somebody that would like to teach kids how to cook healthy. There are other organizations that we've talked to about, and having an engagement with science, having an astronomy lesson followed by stargazing. And everything is dedicated to give the sense of agency and opportunity to our learners. Now, we are using Hattie's approaches that he's shown as the most effective for student achievement with direct and explicit instruction. We're going to model note-taking and modeling for our students. We're focusing on metacognition with problem solving, and then we're teaching to mastery, but we know that reciprocal teaching is very important for this. Space practice, and then cultural awareness and relevance. The Pioneer difference. What we're trying to accomplish is to have a set of master teachers that are able to guide and do a training with teachers in the classroom. We want these teachers to leave our program in 2 years, not with only high achievement scores for our students, but to go out into Arkansas, go out into Pulaski County, and help other schools be leaders in their schools to affect change and improve learning. We are using explicit teaching for most of our subjects when it is proven by evidence to work. We want to focus on student success, but not only academically, but also by wellness and health. This is why we wanted to have a nurse on staff, and we wanted to eventually put in a student-based health center. We're looking at specific career paths for the older grades, and we're going to focus on both soft and the basic skills that workers say they need. And our intention is to only try to serve in severe, low social economic areas where we'll place our schools. So this is time for questions.
Okay, so you do have about 6.5 minutes remaining, but if you're finished with your presentation, we'll see if there's anyone here to speak in opposition. Okay? Any opposition? Checking. Okay. Nope, not at this time. All right. So we will move on into addressing some of the unresolved issues or remaining questions that might have been part of the application. So Dr. Boyd and Ms. Hyatt and Mr. Felton, they'll need you to stay handy to work through any of those.
Thank you, Dr. Pfeffer. The applicant has provided a written agreement with the local library, which was a remaining concern, so that has been corrected. Thank you. I don't know that we have spoke specifically to the qualifications that the people providing professional development in the areas of gifted and talented and alternative learning will have.
I strongly believe the best thing for that is people who are certified to do those, and we will reach out to people that have that qualifications to train. Unfortunately, those are two areas that I myself don't have a lot of experience in, but we have some coworkers that are licensed and a few people in Northeast Arkansas that are certified to provide that.
Okay.
But it won't be trained by anybody that can't.
Okay. So those were the unresolved issues that were there when ADE staff had reviewed. Do you all have any questions related to those unresolved issues from the summary? Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on into the legal review, and
Okay, kind of piggybacking. The first one, alternative learning environments. When I went back through this, it seems like all of the waiver requests were rescinded, and so I'm unsure if you're planning to meet the requirements or if you do actually need waivers that haven't been asked for.
The board and the members of my planning group felt that it was necessary if we're going to be an open charter to open to all students. Therefore, if a student comes in that needs an ALE, we would be more than welcome to accomplish and provide that. So we do not need a waiver from that.
Okay. Number 2, attendance is fine. Number 3 is school board. Similar issues to the previous one. 613, 601 through 107, 609, 610, 614, and 633 have all been repealed. So waivers of those sections aren't necessary, and I just need them to confirm that they're not intending to seek waivers of those repealed sections.
That is correct.
Okay. And the waiver request for 613, 634 was rescinded, but I believe that it is necessary for you to have if your board is going to be appointed rather than elected. So,
Okay, then we'll put those back in.
okay. And I just wanted to touch base on 619, which is the meeting requirements, number of times you have to meet. It does allow for the exception for someone to attend the meeting virtually or by phone now for, I think, maximum 3 times. So I just wanted to clarify that you're still seeking that waiver request.
So they can they can do it 3 times?
By
With the waiver?
phone or virtual, without the waiver, but you're
Okay,
still
that'd be
requesting
fine.
it, but I just want, I mean,
No,
it's.
you can remove that. I can't
Okay.
think of any situation where it'd be more than that.
Okay, and I am okay with 617 and 620, which were on the list, but I have figured those out since then. And the last one on this is 613, 612, which is the law that says if you're convicted of a felony, it creates a vacancy on the board. I believe that the only section they need of that is C, which requires the vacancy to be filled, as it says in 611, which they're getting a waiver from, rather than the entire section. So I'll just allow you to.
Well, I don't want any criminals serving on the board, so.
I didn't
That would
think
be
you
scary.
did. So can you just confirm that 613, 612C is the request?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, number 4, business managers. All of the requests were rescinded for this too. So I wanted to make sure you're planning on following the rules, or in the alternative, there are suggestions here for things you might need a waiver
I
from.
can trust you, all business rules will be followed to a T.
Okay. I'm moving now to number 12. First thing is they need a waiver under the new standards rather than the old. The new standards section is 2G1. And they will also need an additional waiver of the ADE rules governing gifted and talented program approval standards. So if you could just confirm whether or not you agree to those waivers.
We do.
Okay. And I was unsure just on this, whether or not you were rescinding 642-101. I was unclear, so I just wanted either you to confirm that you did intend to rescind it, or say, no, we didn't intend to.
And which one is that?
So it goes in with the gifted and talented, but I think it's just the legislative intent part, rather than 109, which is actually the gifted and talented requirements.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, moving now to number 17. The only issue here is just on standards. You'll need waivers under the new standards of 4F1 and 4F2. Can you
Okay,
confirm?
yes.
Okay. And number 19, same with standards. So for superintendents, it's 4B2, 4C1 and 2 for principals, 4D1 for teachers, 4E1 for guidance counselors, and 4F1 for library media.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to confirm whether or not you needed a waiver of 4B1, which is the requirement that the district employ a full-time superintendent. Employed by the district, not the CMO, and full-time.
Yes.
You do need a waiver there?
Well, they'll be employed full-time by the district, so.
So
I
no
guess
waiver?
No waiver, yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, on number 21, I just wanted to confirm that you intended to seek a waiver of 617-2301 at SEC rather than just the 2301 itself.
That's correct.
Okay. And I just wanted a little clarification on number 21, 617, 2203, and 2403 are the minimum salary schedules. In the rationale for the waiver, it was so that they could pay more to their employees and their teachers, which wouldn't require a waiver because these are just minimums. So I just wanted to clarify that with you to see if you wanted to just provide a little bit of additional explanation.
Well, we want to make sure, like, if we need to hire somebody that, like, works with plumbing, then, and they're not a certified teacher, that we can pay them at a different scale than a certified teacher is what we're asking for.
Okay.
We just want to be competitive also, so.
Okay. Number 23, it's just standards. The new standards for principals are 4C1 and 4C2, which covers the accreditation and the other issues with the principals.
Yes.
Okay. Number 29, teacher licensure. There are several things on this. So Arkansas Code Annotated 617-201 at SEC is related to personnel policies rather than teacher licensure. So I was unsure if that was intentional to have it in this section, or if you intended maybe to put it somewhere else, or.
With the changes, I guess it needs to go, I think we intended so that we wouldn't have to say it in our personal handbook, right?
So it is a requirement that you have the personnel policies, that they be posted on your website, that they be given to teachers, that they're
Right.
incorporated into teacher contracts, all
That's
that
why we
stuff.
wanted to waive that.
Okay. On 617-1004, pardon me, on 6/17/320, that is not a law that exists. I believe that it was just maybe a typo to 302, but I just wanted to confirm that with you. Okay.
Yes.
And we have already gone through all of these new standard sections, 4D1, 4C1, 4C2, 4B1, but those are just reiterated here.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just needed you to confirm that you knew that ADE rules governing Arkansas qualified teacher requirements couldn't be waived.
Yes, ma'am, we understand that.
Okay. Legal is good.
Okay, so panel members, as we go through the waivers, are there any of these that you had questions relating to that you would like to go ahead and ask about now, either for legal or for the school? Okay, Dr. Owa.
In regards to Arkansas qualified teacher requirements, since we've received that clarification, would you go ahead and just expound on how you will ensure that all of the educators who need to be AQT or meet the AQT requirements have met those before they start teaching?
Yes, sir. Of course, we'll do the standard background checks, both of them, but also a transcript is going to be required or proof of completion of a program in order to reach that qualification before we hire them.
Okay.
Anyone else have a waiver question? I did have one.
Yes, ma'am.
Your waiver from the grading scale, the uniform grading scale. Can you tell us a little bit about what the plan is there, if you
Well,
get a waiver
this-
from that?
Yes, ma'am. This might be a legal advice, because what we're looking at is it would be the same scale, but I think what we're looking at is like A would be exemplary work that wouldn't be up. B is that they can master the standard. Anything under that is what we call redo with support. So they would C, D, E, and F. We're going to make sure that they get the support in order to reach that standard before the grade is given. And they'll have that entire quarter to make up that work with support.
Okay, and the main reason why I asked was thinking about grade 9.
Yeah,
when you
that
get
one will
into,
be,
to the
Credits
credit
and
bearing
courses,
and
yeah.
things like that. If a student after grade 9 leaves, what would that mean for that? Okay, so.
Yeah, it would be the AB.
So it's more about how you're going to intervene for students based on the letter grades
Yes,
that
ma'am.
they have?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, that answers my question then.
I have one more thing, and I'm going to look into this, so if I could, we could come back to this at the end after questions. This was not a waiver request, but Alexandra just pointed out it might need to be for the way they're planning on doing physical education, so a waiver may be necessary to accomplish that, and so I'm going to look quickly while you ask questions, and then if you wouldn't mind allowing me to come back and just make sure they have everything they need. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll turn it over now to the panel for questions that you may have formulated while you review the application. Mr. Wilson, do you have any questions?
Yep. Mr. Felton, tell me about your public hearing, the town hall that you all conducted in April. Looks like you had a number of people in person there, and then you had a number of inquiries through the social media. Tell me how that works.
So we did a live cast through Facebook and other medias while we were doing the presentation. A lot of people tagged in, asked questions, showed support. We had a lot of follow-up emails. We made sure that everybody would have a chance from whatever venue. We had some follow-up town halls later down the line where more people showed up as the word got out. We've also met with the Argenta Business District to help get the word out, to get people to talk with us.
Yeah, I didn't see in the application reference to more than one town hall meeting, which is
Right, we just put that
okay,
first
but
one in there.
I'm trying to get a sense of public interest, public demand, parental inquiries. Tell me more about that.
Well, we're looking at a place, several locations that are close to the Boone Park Elementary School on 7th Street. We've had a lot of parents come to those meetings saying that, if we're going to build in this area, they would like to have access to a school like this. It was really not planned town halls. These were churches and families that said, hey, we want our parents to meet you. Could you come on this day and talk to people? Like we had one at the library there. We had another one that is the Historical Society. The Historical Society in North Little Rock, a church. And so they were kind of last minute, and they've kind of happened after the application went in. Does that make sense?
Sort of.
I should have added them when I sent in the new material.
It's a self-serving question, but give me some assessment, your assessment of how strong or interested, how strong the demand is in that local area.
Mr. Wilson, I can't hear you.
Yeah, give me a sense of how strong the local demand is in that area.
Well,
for
the Argenta
this
is
proposal.
the Argenta Council, sorry. They're building new housing in that area. They have had a request for people that want to move. One of the questions they're getting a lot of is there a school located nearby, a quality school? When they go and look at the schools that are there, they're not quite interested in moving in. So there's a demand as they build these new areas, and they're filling up already. With the new local businesses and the restructuring of Argenta, there's a demand. I know for a fact, and I don't like to estimate, but most of the families that we have talked to have come from 7th Street. And that's probably about 30 or 40 families.
Thank you.
Dr. Hernandez,
Still limit two?
let's start with 2.
Okay. So the first one, going back to the cap question, I know we said there was a typo on that it was K-9, but I was curious about the overall enrollment cap was set at 1,000, and typically, this may be a Dr. Boyd question, is that we always kind of see what that trend looks like going up to 1,000. And so I'm just curious about, it's what we're seeing is it stops K-9 at 525, but there's still that. Does the cap need to be set at 525, or does it need to be 1,000?
I'm sorry, I messed up. Dr. Boyd just pointed out, the 9th grade is at year 5. We will eventually go to seniors, which up to the 12th grade, which will be 1,000. So when you asked K-9, I was confused. It's K-12.
Okay.
So that would be 1,000.
So it's.
No, I'm thinking, what?
No, you're right.
Uh-huh.
I just want to restate and clarify. So charter applications are initially only issued for 5 years. So the table accounts for the first 5 years, and that accounts for K-9. The application's intention is to be for a full K-12 eventually, and eventually to reach 1,000 students for the cap, should they be approved and renewed.
So I guess my question is, if we're approving this charter based on a K-12 configuration and 1,000 cap, are they held to the stair-step increase that they've outlined, or are we opening them up to say they can be a K-12 tomorrow with 1,000 students?
No, so they will be held to the stair-step plan unless they come back and ask for an amendment. So in previous years, we've had schools that have been approved, and then they had a lot more interest than they originally thought they were going to have, and they've had to come back and request to go ahead and roll up sooner or add more numbers within the cap that they were granted. Does that make sense?
So would it be appropriate to adopt it or approve it that way, or would it be more appropriate to approve it where the 5-year is going to be?
So in the past, the way we've approved it is we've approved it for the full plan. So like in this case, it would be K-12 and 1,000, with the caveats that in year 1 they'll be planning and have no students. In year 2 they'll have K-6 and only 350 students or less.
Okay. All right. And my second question is around in that first year being a planning year, but when I look at the budget reflects revenue and expenditures in 1920 and then 2021. And so my question is obviously not having any students, there won't be revenue coming in the planning year. And so is that
Right.
just the way it may be just our budget template that made y'all have to put in 2 years?
That's what it was. We had to put something there, and we thought, okay, so what if we get a grant, a startup grant, then that's what it would be based on. if that doesn't happen, we have no problem working for free. So, I mean, and then the budget would be built on the building itself and the curriculum and materials moving forward.
So planning year would be based on any grants that would be received, and staffing would be according to whatever
Yes,
funding
sir.
was available. And then what shows in our books is 1920 would actually be 2021, so
2021.
everything, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank
And I
you.
didn't know how to change that because we went the extra year.
Dr. Owen?
Couple of questions about your training, educator training. Will you provide some additional information on what the master teaching training would look like and the purpose? Kind of expound on the purpose of that. I know you kind of mentioned to assist other teachers both inside the school system and additional districts, but if you could expound upon that, as well as the cultural awareness training that you mentioned, the purpose of that and what that would look like. And then you also mentioned PLCs, if you could share what that would look like within your school system as well.
Yes, sir. So let's start with your first question about master teachers. For master teachers, they will have to be certified and have some experience within the classrooms. All professional development will be, just like normal schools with the 30. The master teachers will be trained more in how to mentor and coach on one end, but also make sure they understand the curriculum and instruction that we use on a daily. So they'd be trained in explicit instruction, direct instruction, bringing in experts from those programs to help in that area. And then making sure that they're, I almost want to say, overly trained in order to assist for the apprentice teacher. Now, the apprentice teacher will also be trained over their 2-year term in those same things, but they will be working side by side with the teacher. So in my experience, I went in and I spent 6 weeks, and I know it's changed since then. I spent 6 weeks in one grade, 6 weeks in the next, and I only really taught maybe 3 days. But they're going to be teaching, co-teaching every day. Now, I know that's changed over the years, and by no means am I down anything, but this would be side by side. And I've seen that work when I was at the Montessori school, and now at Exalt, we use the co-teaching model, and with the younger teacher with less experience than the accredited teacher that has training and most experience in those items. For the cultural awareness, this one's really like, we really want to make sure that we're using responsive and restorative justice in our school for discipline. I've been trained in that. We did restorative at the CPA in Jacksonville in high school. I used it at Rockbridge, and we're using it now at Exalt. It's a very good system. It helps teachers understand, and there's a lot of front loading you have to do with teachers about, why kids behave a certain way. What does PTSD look like for students living in a stressful environment? How does poverty affect learning? Teaching with the brain in mind or teaching with poverty in mind, those kind of situations. And we're looking at those more being, half experts coming in, talking to teachers, another half book study. Most of the stuff that I've learned over the years is experience. Martin Luther King was in a district school. Jacksonville was mostly poverty, and then of course Rockbridge and Exalt are 100%. And once I learned more about how things work, now Exalt on the other hand, is Hispanic, over 70% Hispanic. So that's another learning curve that we need to make sure that we have our teachers with ESL training, and then also make sure that they're, have special education training in order to provide modifications and anything of that nature that need to make sure the student is successful. And I'm sorry, your third one.
PLCs.
So I've worked with PLCs. The second question, it was your second question.